Howdy ho, peoples. Well, first things first. The when this video posts, I will have surpassed 540 hours with no Xanax. The last Xanax that I took was on the 4th at 7:30 a.m. So I think my math is solid, but was always my worst subject. But that's 540 hours with no Xanax and no desire to take any Xanax. I still have my half a pill in my blue container over here somewhere in this box of stuff, so you can hear me rustling around for no apparent reason because the box is too small. But yeah, I still have, well, now there's some Valium in there with them, but I still have my orange pill. Here, let's do something for the fun of it. I like to do spontaneous shit. Here's my orange pill. That is how much I want any more Xanax. Gone. It's done. It's over. So, that's over with. As far as the Valium, I will post my Valium intake up there. And as I said in my other video, my doctor wants me to take it 3 times, 3 10-milligram pills of it a day. I usually don't do that, but I will post what Valium I've been taking recently below the video. But yeah, I got that nasty poison on my fingers now. Anyways, yeah, I got the hypersensitivity thing, so I'm trying to, it's like I need pasties. It's so freaking ridiculous. I'm trying to be decent. Here, I'll try to button a button. I'm trying to be decent when I got CRPS in 70% of my body. And the hypersensitivity starts like right here. There's actually a thoracotomy scar where they cut out my rib right there. That's where the shit starts. But I made other videos where I'm just shirtless, and people seem to be annoyed by my nipples, so I try to keep them covered out of common decency to the average viewer. And the unaverage viewer seems to be too interested in them, so I don't like that either. But I had already made a video before this one, and I rarely strike videos. I'm usually a first take guy, however it comes out, because I want the whole process of benzo withdrawal and what benzos do to your mind seen. And I want people to see me after I'm benzo free, because I will be a much more eloquent, different person altogether. I want people to see that difference. But in the first video, I said 540 minutes instead of hours, and I kept saying minutes. And I mean, I know people can read between the lines. Plus, it got overblown and it got out of hand, and it was like it was longer than the original X-Men movie. So, I mean, it was just stupid. And today I was just gonna not take any benzos at all. I did not take any benzos at all until I got up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't take any at all until 4 in the afternoon. And I took chopped one of them 10-milligram pills in half and took 5 milligrams, which was actually turned out to be a good thing, because these people upstairs are loud and annoying, and so they're really getting on my nerves. But anyways, the big news in my life is, for the 24 to 30 people that may care, is apparently a Baker's cyst is a big deal. Now, when I quickly going through the story of it, I started having pain in my leg and not knowing why. And I went to the doctor, and they said, well, it's probably RPS related. Your knee is swollen up, so, you know, there's just shooting cortisone into my knee, which actually helped for a little while. So they're like, oh, well, it helped. It must, it didn't help for very long, 3 to 4 weeks. Then my ankle swelled up, and they gave me like oral steroids, and then I got started thinking I had rheumatoid arthritis because that runs in the family. Because they said normal arthritis doesn't onset like that. You said you wouldn't get that all at once like that. So, but it could be rheumatoid arthritis, So I was like, oh, that just sounds peachy. Because I had an uncle that was wrecked by that, and it's just horrible. And he was stuck riding around on a scooter for like 10 years at the end of his life, and just miserable all the time. And so I got tests done for the rheumatoid arthritis, which involved drawing fluid out of the knee and analyzing the knee, and also an ultrasound. And that's when they found the Baker's cyst. And I'm talking 2 years ago. And so I've been suffering with this for like 3 years. And so they knew I had a Baker's cyst, but they made it sound like it was no big deal. They were like, what do you do with that? And I was like, usually nothing. I'm like, nothing? And I was like, okay. And then finally I'm like, it hurts. I mean, I have trouble putting on pants and bending my legs. And finally I got insistent with my doctor, and I told my doctor, like, he was like, well, you got that bone scan scheduled with pain management. I said, that's not for 2 more months. That'll be 2 more months of me suffering. I more or less wouldn't leave his office until he scheduled an MRI for me, which I was able to get the next week. And what the MRI showed is that the damn thing had burst, and the fluid the fluid ran into my calf, and that's why I was getting all that pain in my calf and weirdness in my calf muscle and stuff. Maybe even the swelling in my ankle. I don't know. But what you have to understand about Baker's cyst is, it sounds like something that you'd read in a Grimm's fairy tale, that a ogre is cooking up in a kitchen and baking a Baker's cyst. But anyways, that was kind of disgusting. Anyways, it's actually a pretty goddamn evil thing. It's very, very painful. It limits mobility. It's also like Jason Voorhees, man. You can drain it and it'll just keep coming back. And this doctor's visit I had with this guy yesterday was like, I've been to a lot of doctors, so I know the certain face they have, which is the face that says, you're kind of fucked. It's the you're kind of fucked face. They're trying to gently tell you that you're kind of in a no-win situation. He said, we can operate on it, but the operation is not only dangerous because we could screw up and do more damage than good, but the cyst itself could actually come back, and the surgery could amount to anything. Could amount to nothing but a waste of time, and then you're risking the surgery. And then he's like, as far as like whether it bursting did any nerve damage in your leg, we can't do anything about that. That's not fixable. He said nothing encouraging except for the platitude at the end. We're like, oh, we'll fix you up. Like they always say at the end, we'll help you out. We'll fix you up. But up until then, it was all doom and gloom, and I was prepared for not good news, but I wasn't quite prepared for all that, because after I had the MRI, I went to the pain management guy, and he wasn't the one that ordered the MRI. That was my doctor. So he didn't have access to it. But he was the guy that first discovered the Baker's cyst through the ultrasound by looking at the ultrasound that I had. And he's like, well, he's the guy that first told me I had a Baker's cyst. He was like, are you sure it burst? And I said, well, that's what the MRI said. And that's what the people that analyzed the MRI said, it was burst. And he's like, because it seems like it's back. It's like, Jason, man, you can't kill it. And he's like, okay, well, he made me feel it. I don't know what I was feeling. He said, but you feel that right there? And I'm like, yeah. He said, that's why you can't bend your leg right, And then later in the same visit, he was like, well, what do you do for this kind of a thing? Do you drain it? What do you do for it? And he goes, usually nothing, as long as it's not impairing your mobility or flexibility any. And I just looked at the guy like, if I hit him with a cane, how much time would I have to do in prison? It's like, I have a cane beside me. It's obviously impairing my mobility, and I just told you that I had trouble putting my pants on, bending that leg far enough, and and he's like, well, as long as it doesn't impair your mobility or flexibility, and we usually don't do anything with it. Because they're evil things. These Baker cysts, they're evil things. They're hard to get rid of. Now, some nice person on the internet told me they had one, and I'll remember it out of my head. I wrote it down on a piece of paper, though, just to remember it. They had arthroscopic meniscus surgery on theirs, and they said they felt better after that. So, arthroscopic surgery generally means a needle and not the knife, not the incision. So, maybe that just means that it drained. She had it drained and it never come back. But yeah, I heard nothing encouraging yesterday. I was kind of devastated by the whole thing, and the most devastating part of all to me about it was, it's like they're not even going to do a test on this thing until April. I'm not talking about treatment. I'm talking about a test to see what treatment to do until April. So I'm stuck with this bad leg at least until summertime, and I'm a fall risk, and that's the thing that got me is like, I'm gonna get this test, which I forget the name of it. It had something like EMG or something like that. I'm gonna get this test, and then they're gonna go from the test. Then I'll have to schedule another appointment, and it's just gonna keep going on and on. And I've had the bad leg for like 3 years. It's been like this. It's just been totally horrible, where I've been falling down and stuff since since about a month and a half. So yeah, that was just the most horrible part of the whole thing. Is like, again, nothing gets done. I go to doctors and nothing gets done, or they're looking for the wrong things. Like they thought it was CRPS related, and then they thought maybe I had rheumatoid arthritis, and and they're not finding what's wrong, and they're just treating symptoms, and nothing gets done. That's why I canceled my heart appointment, because I was like, I can feel when my heart goes out of rhythm. I'm not going into the heart doctor and being put up to asked a bunch of the same questions, and then put on an EKG and have them telling me my heart is fine at that particular moment, because I can feel that it's fine. So one thing they do for a Baker cyst is physical therapy, but that also presents a problem because I'm in northern Ohio. We got some hideous weather around here, and there's no walking outside with that, and I got a small apartment, and I'm a relatively tall guy, so if I fall, I mean, I can't fall in a specific direction. I could fall and not only break my TV, but bash my head against it at the same time. The only way I could walk for any kind of exercise in this place, and that kind of exercise, is like if I moved my coffee table in the living room and just walked around a circle in my big living room. The other areas, I'm too tall to walk through, because if I fall, I'm going to hit a counter or bash my head, or I'm going to get hurt. So it's like, what's my options? Schedule a bunch of mall walking. I mean, I could go back to Dr. Wacky Pants, which is my main doctor, my primary caregiver, and tell him about the situation and say, like, look, this isn't going to be dealt with 6 months, and maybe try to get that scooter thing so I can get around better and not worry about falling in the snow, because it snowed as late as June where I live. I've saw snowflakes on June 3rd where I live. So, and I can't be walking on slippery surfaces if I'm falling on carpet and stuff. So I could go back to him, and also like, what kind of physical therapy can I do with this? But he told me not to walk on it, whereas the guy from pain management says, oh, you can walk on it. He tells me to stay off it as much as possible, my main doctor, And then the pain management guy tells me, you can walk on it, go ahead. So uh, the problem is like yesterday I went to the specialist. I went to the orthopedics guys, the guys that deal with this kind of crap. So the other guys that I were talking to, that's not their area of specialties. That's not their specialty. But the guy this was his specialty, and he deals with this kind of stuff all the time. He was grim. Man, it was grim what he was telling me. He's like, we don't like to do surgery on it because there's a lot of sensitive tissue around there and ligaments and nerves and stuff. And we don't like to operate on them. And if you drain them, they're basically Jason Voorhees. They just keep coming back. You can't kill them. He said we could just keep draining it over and over again. And it's like, as far as the fluid from when it burst, where it got in your leg, if that did any damage, we can't do anything about that. So I heard no. I was devastated yesterday because I was like, not only did I not hear any good news, and the other doctors I had talked to made it sound like it was a no big deal type of thing. Whereas this guy, who is his actual specialty, is like, yeah, man, you got a problem here. Not only was there that, but I am not going to get anything done about it at least until May, probably June. I mean, I'm going to have to live with this thing, and it hurts. It's a Baker's cyst, a painful thing. I got this guy who delivers meals to my house named Robert. He's an old guy. He's got a plastic knee, and he on his other knee he had a Baker's cyst, and he's like, "Oh man, them things are goddamn painful, man." He's like, "Those are awful." I'm like, "Yeah, I agree," and other people have told me that they're like really painful, which is that's just what I need, is more pain to brighten up my day. Um, but anyways, so yeah, I'm still kind of like I was really reeling from that yesterday, and I wrote a text. I don't have people I can talk to that are supportive types, so I wrote a text to somebody, and it didn't go through. It just says sending. I don't understand. I'm an old guy, so technology is not my thing. But it just said sending. I don't think they ever got it anyway. But I had to vent about the my horrible doctor's visit to somebody, and I'm like, can't call this person, can't call that person, can't call this person. If I call this person, they will listen quietly and then just talk about their shit instead of liking, they don't believe in conversations. They believe in it's your turn to talk and now it's my turn to talk. The two things are not related in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, I didn't want to call my most reliable friend because he's on vacation in Key Largo right now. So I didn't want to bother him with it. He's just down here to catch some fish. So, but yeah, I was distraught. I'm still not completely over it. But you got to do positive things when negative stuff just, you got to put up an umbrella when it starts raining. Put it that way. So I was like, I got this hole in my wall for no damn reason. And then I was like, wait a minute, let me check my electric bill. And I checked my electric bill, and my electric bill is like double from this hole that I've had in my wall, which is, I've showed on camera, which is 8 feet tall by like 18, 20 inches wide. And it goes into the basement. The basement's not heated, man. And all kind of cold air was coming up in there, which was overworking my space heaters in here, which are normally very economical. So my electric bill turned out to be either double or more than, actually probably more than double. And I was like, well, I can do something about that. So I cut some cardboard and taped it up. I'm not calling my landlord or talking to my landlord because I'm irritated with him. It took him 3 weeks to fix the porch light, which is a simple thing. You might have to replace this whole wall of thick drywall because it's just such a big hole that, fitting the drywall in that hole. And, I talked to people about it that know a little bit about it, and they're like, it's probably got to replace the whole wall. But, he put that hole in the wall on November 8th. That's 2.5 months ago. And it's just been there. And I've been, like I say, prioritizing my catastrophes. But it cost me like 50, $60 extra on my electric bill this month. So I taped it up as best I could with cardboard and duct tape. And it made a big difference as far as the heat in the room. Because a lot more cold air was coming up from the basement than I thought. Because the basement's not heated at all. And anyways, so this morning I did positive things this morning because I woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I got my coffee and I got this phone call. And I paid those people to clean my house before the psychologist lady came in here because I didn't want to get thrown into a group home. I had that thought in my head because I said, it looks like an insane person lives here. Because I haven't been able to walk, I've just, I'm not bending around picking stuff up, worrying about falling over. So this place was just an utter disaster. I did most of the housework myself because, like I say, with the people that I hired to do the work, when somebody shows up at your house with a 4-pack of tall boys, you're probably not going to get all that much work out of them. Which I got some, but not a whole lot. But anyways, that guy called me up and this morning, and he said, because I gave him a couple bags of laundry as part of my fee, for the money that I gave him. And he's like, well, he needs your laundry. And he's like 8:45 in the morning. And I'm like, what's this guy thinking? It's Saturday at 8:45 in the morning. And I'm like, yeah. He said, oh, I'll be over in a little bit. So he come over, and I got that idea. I was like, well, I can throw some more money your way, but I want you to do a couple things for me. I want you to drop off this bag at my brother's house, who lives in another city. And I want you to buy a huge bag of salt because the winter is really evil here now. And I want you to shovel. And then I had, like, I'm tall, so I could reach all the way up, like, to within just a few inches at the top. But I'm not getting on no step ladder, just for a few inches at the top of where I was taping the cardboard. And I said, you can finish taping this cardboard for me. So I made him do all these things, and I gave him some money, which was, I gave him like $40 to do these things. And he needed the money. At first, he wasn't going to take it, but I was like, dude, you need the money. I got the money. I don't give a fuck. But I got this idea in my head the day before where the dude in the wheelchair, he keeps going down the ramp and getting stuck and not being able to get back up the ramp. So the first time I helped him out and ended up falling down, and then the second time I was asleep, and he had a medical alert bracelet that he hit, and it actually worked for a change. And people came and picked him up, and so I was like, well, I could just put salt out there in a bucket, like right on the corner of the porch, and he can wheel over to the side of the porch and just take a scooper and throw the salt in the bad places that where he was getting stuck at. So I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll just buy a huge bag of salt. And none of the other there's like able-bodied people in the building, but they're of course lazy and people, and loud too. Some of them. So they're either loud or they got post-traumatic stress disorder from being in wars and shit. So, pick your poison. But anyways, so this guy leaves, and my phone dies, so I can't communicate with him. And I'm like, man, my battery's dead. I can't communicate with him. So I thought he just left. So there's this 50-pound bag of salt on the porch, and I'm in my shorts and socks, and that is it. And it's 15 degrees outside, and I'm like, I'm not leaving that salt out there. I said, I'm doing my plan. So I took the gray bucket out there in my socks and shorts in 15-degree weather. I picked up the 50-pound bag of salt, and I poured like half of it into the bucket, and then I carried the bucket over to the corner of the porch where, the guy could throw the salt at the bottom of the ramp and around the garbage cans where he was getting stuck and stuff, because he likes to take out his own garbage. And, I don't use the ramp no more. I don't deal with the ramp no more, but it would help me out too when I got to take my garbage out. But anyways, so one of my socks falls off, so I'm just walking around on concrete in this big porch, like with one sock on and the other sock stuffed in my pocket, you know, carrying a like 25, 30-pound bag of salt, whatever was left after I dumped whatever in the bucket. I put the bucket over where my plan is the guy could wheel over there and then take care of himself. Because nobody knows better than me what it's like not to be able to take care of yourself, right? And, you know, having had to learn how to walk twice and being very familiar with wheelchairs and whatnot from my past. So that made me feel good. And I think I covered everything there. I'm going to try to make a short video because the other video was like longer than the X-Men movie, and it is just, you know, wasn't really, I don't know if I was entertaining or there was any point to it or not. I don't know, but all I know is I started out just saying, oh, I'll be 540 minutes instead of hours without Xanax. Like, that's a big accomplishment, 500. That is actually a big accomplishment if you think about it. But my math being what it is, let's see. There's no way I could, without paper, that I could figure out how long 540 minutes was, but it's really be 540 plus hours when this gets posted that I haven't had any Xanax. I have no desire for any, and, you know, I wanted to go benzo. I don't know if I said this before, but I wanted to go benzo free today, but cause I woke up early in the morning. I was doing good deeds. I was giving this guy money. I was helping this other guy, and I was having fun walking around in shorts in 15-degree weather with one sock on. And, you know, so I was like, I don't feel that stressed out, you know, but maybe it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was like, maybe I'll take half of a Valium, which was be 5 milligrams, you know, because I wanted to go like the whole day benzo free. And I'm glad I did do that, because then the noise started upstairs, and it was really just stupid noise, getting on my fucking nerves type of noise, and I just wanted to kill them all, to quiet them. You know, I just wanted them to be gone. It was just irritating. It's one thing, like when you're going through withdrawal and you're edgy and stuff, it's one thing to have your little quiet inner sanctum area where everything's all peaceful. It's another thing to listen to a bunch of bullshit. You know, like the other day, I can hear them talking. I can hear like the actual things that they're saying. I don't know if they can hear me. My niece on the phone asked me, "Do you think they can hear you talking bad about them?" And I said, "I don't know. Let's find out." Hey, can you hear me? So I raised my voice. I was like, "Hey, can you hear me talking bad about you?" But I can hear them. You know, and it was kind of funny what I heard yesterday. It was like, you say that now, but you'll be in bed with me later tonight. You know, I heard something like that. But, yeah, I ran into a couple of repeats anyway in the other video, because, you know, that'll happen when you make 100. This is like my 116th or 117th video. Repeats will happen. But, yeah, I don't know what to do. That part of what they do with Baker's cysts is physical therapy. So, you know, but that's like every step's an adventure. I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna fall or not. So I don't know how wise that would be to just start walking around indoors here, or, you know, maybe schedule mall walks. Use like the SARTA transportation or whatever, and schedule mall walks or someplace where I can fall down and not hit my head on anything. This is a small apartment. If I fell in here, I would break a guitar, I would get burnt on an electric heater, and then crack my skull on an air conditioner. You know, if I fall in the kitchen, I'm going to hit the counter and probably get stabbed with a knife. If I fall in the living room, I'm probably going to crack my head on the TV and break my TV. You know, it's just a little tiny apartment. It's good enough for one person, and I like the living room. It's fairly spacious. But even if I remove everything from the floor area and just walk around a circle in the living room area, the whole point of falling is it's really kind of hard to direct the direction of falling. If you could do that, I suppose you wouldn't fall in the first place. So just because like I'm walking around, it doesn't mean I'm going to fall toward the middle of the room. I might fall toward the couch and hit. I sprained tore a rotator cuff doing that once before, where you just catch your arm funny when you fall, or you get hurt. So it's more rock and a hard place stuff. Mine's like rock and a hard place and a valley full of poisonous snakes and buckets of glass, and it's like it's a lot more than just rock and a hard place. So yeah, I don't know. I can't even keep track of what I covered and what I didn't cover, as far as like once I do more than one video, and that video was such a mess, the first one that I made, that I had to redo it just because I couldn't even distinguish minutes from hours. 'Cause I'm not having a good day and I'm not completely over. Um, um, Yesterday's catastrophic news, where I'm going to have this leg for at least another 6 months before I do anything about it, because I'm not getting a test, even the test on it, until the middle of April. And and then there's more waiting for the appointment scheduled to get it drained, if they want to do that way, if that's what that arthroscopic meniscus surgery is, or whatever. There's nothing's going to get done about it basically for until probably May if I'm lucky, June or July if I'm unlucky. So I'm just stuck with it, and these things hurt. Baker cysts, man, they hurt. And it hurts like when you're lying in bed and you like cock your leg and move your leg like a little bit, like I just did. They freaking hurt. And the few people that I've talked to that had them, they all agree like those things are really painful. I'm like I don't know. It's kind of like you know how you get a pimple on your face and it can be painful if it's a deep-seated pimple. Well, it's kind of like a pimple in the middle of your leg. That swelling in there, it's the swelling, I think, that makes it painful. But it's also on a joint and not just sitting on your face. So, and it's a joint you have to use and put weight on. So, yeah, it's a bad place to have a pimple. If you want to compare a cyst to a pimple. But, yeah, I mean, I'm just coping as best as I can cope. And I try to do like open up umbrellas when the rain starts to fall. I try to do like positive things, like taping up the hole in my wall finally, and helping that dude out, helping my brother out, and helping the guy in the wheelchair out all at the same time. I'm not trying to apply for sainthood or nothing like that, because I'm a filthy-minded son of a bitch, and can be quite hateful and vengeful at times if I am properly provoked, and have even been known to pick up a machete or two if the occasion calls for it. But I had done some research on this microphone and how it should be positioned, and one of the things I have to do with it is, because I have a fairly deep voice. I've been told I have a very deep voice, but I don't see it that way. It just sounds like a fairly deep voice to me. That the gain has to be way down, and the gain's up now, but it really should be like way down. And then I have to get these free programs where you can do post-production on audio, and then I don't know, you might even be able to do that on YouTube, I don't know. But the video that I watched, the tutorial video with this chick, she was saying she uses this program, and she likes to keep her gain low, and then she uses program, then you can change the timbre even of your voice if that's what you want, or I'm sure I'll be able to raise the volume. And another thing that's important about the post-production thing is, like, if you keep the gain down, I'm not picking up stampy. The gain makes the microphone hotter and more sensitive. And the front of the microphone, I also found out that, like, when you talk into one of these Yeti microphones, you need to talk at the Yeti symbol. You don't talk at the top of the microphone. You talk at the front of the microphone. That's the hot part of the microphone. So I've been doing, some research there. Also, the night before I went in to my orthopedics appointment, that was a disaster. I stayed up very late for 3 hours, sat there trying to figure out how to do it for free, making an audio book and digitally adding a picture to it, which is what I want to do. See, I even made this out of an old useless mouse pad. It's like, this will black out the screen completely, just turn everything black. And then in this program that I was experimenting with called Movavi, which is like a ripoff of Windows My Movie Maker or whatever. They're charging for that now in 2019, which it was free before. But I got a free old program, but I couldn't figure out how to do what I wanted to do with it, and I wasted hours trying to figure it out. And I'm not a tech guy. I don't even know how to ask or get on the right forums to get the tech information. I'm trying to take advice from a 14-year-old Australian kid, and I couldn't make that work, and I'm downloading programs onto my computer that may kill it. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. So I found this Movavi thing, and I was like, well, this is really easy to use, but they have like, to keep the free trial thing, to make you buy it, they kept putting like Movavi real big across the screen, which defeated the whole purpose. But I was like, well, this I can use, I'm like, okay, I've been spending money like water anyway, so I bought a lifetime uh, subscription, key code, whatever, to that Movavi thing, to where I can use it, where I can just record the audio and then put in whatever pictures I want. I could even put in like multiple pictures, and get creative with it and stuff. And I'm going to have something to do during this hideous Ohio winters next week, starting Tuesday. We're talking high of 4, low of 4 degrees. There's even a low of 8 degrees, I think, in there somewhere, but it's only going to last for like 4 days. But yeah, so I've been trying to, I'm always trying. I'm such a little engine that could. I always try. Somebody said I was inspirational, and that's the last thing you want anybody to call you is inspirational, because that means bad fucking shit is happening to you. People do not look at Tom Brady and say he's inspirational. They just say he's really good at what he does. He works hard. Maybe the fact that he works hard at his craft would make him inspirational. I don't know. They say inspirational about some guy that overcomes like a catastrophic injury. Like they said, Joe Montana was inspirational after he was out of football for a year and a half after Leonard Marshall hit him and bruised his sternum, broke his ribs, and broke his hand, and he was out of football for like a year and a half, and that's when Steve Young took over for the 49ers. So you don't want nobody to say inspirational about you, because that means you was fucked up. There's things wrong with you. So, but I'd rather not be inspirational. I don't want to be a downer, but I don't want to be inspirational. No, never. But anyways, yeah. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in the whole keeping busy and trying to do things. And I have like a drive in me that wants to create like, an audiobook is not really creating, because it's somebody else's work, but the actual reading of it, it's sort of creating it for someone else that's unfamiliar with the book. It's like the people that never heard of The Last Algonquin, when I put it on, if they've never read the book, I'm kind of creating it for them by reading it to them. Like with the Iceberg Hermit, which I did a horrible job on, of course, because I had a bad microphone and I was new to the whole thing. That book was out of print, and it was nowhere to be found, audiobook wise. I mean, it might have been on Kindle or one of them things I don't know about, but it was definitely out of print. So I knew that my copy was going to be the best copy on YouTube, because it was going to be the only copy on YouTube. And same thing with The Last Algonquin. There's no copy of it on YouTube. So in a way, that's creating something for people, even though it's somebody else's creation. It's like more or less, well, you could call it introducing it to somebody else. You know, like check out this neat thing. If I do a good enough job on it, that is. Um, but you know, I can be creative, like with picking out the pictures to fit into the different scenes and the thing and whatever. And it's still making something. You know, even me just blathering on to you right now is making something. You know, these words were not rehearsed in any kind of way, and that should be quite obvious. So it's still creating something. And like when I write on guitar, um, the guy that he read me like a book. That when I got my guitar taken to the shop, taken to the doctor, and fixed and whatnot, he's like, "You like to play an E a lot, don't you?" He's like, "They can even tell just from fretware what you play." And I'm like, "Yeah, I always write and play everything in E. E and A is the two keys that I know. That's it." So you know, read the tea leaves, man. He read it like a book. Like he was like, "Yeah, you play an E." But I've been having this other guy do that for me because of my walking issues. I don't even like to carry my guitars across the room, let alone like outside or anything like that. So, and he likes doing that kind of stuff anyway. So I have been having like an agent take care of that for me. I think I talked about that already probably. Uh, but yeah, I think there's a lot of times I think when there's unhappy people, it's because they don't um, create things and make things. You know. Um, yeah, I've always been like that though. You know, I've never been. I'm not saying I'm good at the things I create, except for I think I'm a pretty good writer. But I've always done that. You know, I wanted to play guitar. I never had any guitar lessons or anybody to teach me how to be a decent guitar player. So I went about it all wrong and made it as difficult for myself as possible. But guitar, writing, um, what else did I like to do? I drew when I was a kid, but I wasn't very good at that. I never, not, there wasn't a lot of these creative things that I did that I was very good at, except for writing. And I only found that out by accident, which is a story I've already told where I accidentally wrote a story where I'm like, I didn't had no intention of writing a story. It just kind of popped out of my head. I just wanted to see if this typewriter worked. And a bunch of words popped in my head, and they started to, and the story sort of assembled itself. I was like, I still have it. It's over there. It's from I think 1997, um, and I showed it on here before. It's like because I was like that was like I had two miraculous events in my life that I consider like miraculous, and that was they're both concerned with writing, but that was me sitting down and accidentally writing a functioning story, which I don't know how you can accidentally write a story, but that's the way that happened. That's kind of how I knew that I was a writer. Is I didn't set out and say, "Well, I'm going to be a writer." The same way I set out, like I'm going to be a guitar player, because I am not good at guitar. I'm not good at guitar. So um, I was like, that's when I figured out that that's what I was supposed to be doing. And another time when I was writing, um, uh, I forget how old I was, maybe 28, 29, 30, but I was healthy and large and could walk good and not give a fuck attitude, knew how to carry myself and stuff. So I'm walking late at night, and this words pop in my head. Um, Never forget it. Uh, Whitehead, not Whitehead. That's another thing. White hand sat in his grotto, spitting up vileness. I'm like, what the fuck is a grotto? I don't even know what a grotto is. You know, but I went home. I walked home as soon as that popped in my head, and I sat down and I wrote a chapter from that was the opening line. White hand sat in his grotto, spitting up vileness. And it was about a guy that had vitiligo on his hand, and that's why he was called White Hand, and he was dying of an illness. And I'm telling you to a plot to the novel that I wrote pointlessly, but the the idea is this character was just popped in my head, and that was like, you know, that was like voice of God stuff to me. Like, it's like that's just weird. I'm not thinking about anything really, and just this line pops in my head that, that was what was so cool about writing that book. That part of that book is book 3 of the book. It has 4 parts to it, and it all came to me out of order, and then I like fit it together like a jigsaw puzzle, and it all fit together perfectly. And it was just cool. It was just neat, and yeah, I miss that. I do miss that. I quit writing in 2001, and I started to look for a woman, and then I told that story before. 2003, perhaps the most disastrous thing psychologically happened to me that I can think of. I mean, I can't think of too many more worse things. I mean, when you involve death, I mean, at least there's an ending to the suffering, but there's no ending to this until I'm gone. Um, but yeah, see, this is already 46 minutes. The other one was like 120 minutes. I'm like, man, I'm all over the place. I'm always all over the place, man. That's just the way my brain works, and that's really helpful when you're a writer, because you have to like wade through things. You have to be like, well, look at things from different angles and fit things together and stuff. But as an oral storyteller, it sucks donkey dicks, because it does not make you interesting to listen to explore possibilities and various things. It's like, well, it could have been this, or it could have been that, or it could have been that. No, a good storyteller says this happened, and then this happened. There's no like, this could have happened, or it could have been about this, or it could have been about that. That's all from being a writer and having that process work through my mind. And now I'm being boring and self-indulgent. So I will tell you the other story, which involved a gunfight that I heard about. It's a safe story, I can tell, I believe, because the principals are dead, and the person that told me the story, I don't think they would care if I told them the story. But I had an uncle, and this time I won't name him. I named him in the other video. But I have one of my uncles, not the serial killer uncle, not the leg breaker uncle, another uncle. But he's in a bar, and a guy pulled a 22 on him, and he pulled out a 357. And the guy's like, "I'm gonna shoot you," and my uncle was like, "I don't think you understand. It's like, if you shoot me with a 22, I'm probably gonna live. This is a 357. If I shoot you, I'm probably gonna have put a hole in you big enough that I can look through and see daylight." And the guy saw reason and put his 22 on the bar, and then my uncle proceeded to pistol whip the guy into oblivion with a 357. So, yeah, I don't think anybody, there's just so many of those types of things, because the people that I came from were so murderously violent that, well, it is what it is. My sleeve is itching me right now because it's touching my hypersensitive skin. I'm such a sensitive lad, coming from all this things, but I do have that in me. I don't know if it's like from repression, or, well, I guess I could tell you about the first time I stood up to my dad, because my dad was utterly terrifying to like everybody. But the first time I stood up to my dad was over him being mean to someone else, not me. And it just popped out of my mouth, man. I said, "You know what? You're just a mean son of a bitch." And then he's like, "What?" And I stood up and I said, "You heard me." And I got in his face like that. And then things got, words were said back and forth and stuff. And this is a little embarrassing for me to admit, but my younger sister was there, and she was holding my nephew. And I thought she was trying to break it up. I thought I was just pushing her out of the way. But, pretty big, pretty strong dude. I actually threw her across the room while she was holding a baby, and she miraculously landed in a chair, because that's how far gone I was, because I had put up with 20 years of living with this maniac. And, I just snapped. But I thought I was just pushing her out of the way, but I actually threw her down while she was holding a baby. And, uh, I said my piece, and my dad, having been in millions of conflicts and hurt many, many people, and understanding violence at a very deep level, understood that if either one of us put hands on each other, death, hospitals, police, some of them things were going to be involved, because I was far gone. He didn't even say, "What the hell did you just do to your sister?" Like, he wasn't even paying attention to that. He was just looking at me. But, I just finally snapped after 20 years. And I was in the house for 20 years, of course, because I had the spinal surgeries, and I had no way to get out of there. And I had no, it's complicated. But mainly it's my health issues were keeping me there. And some psychological issues. But that's, at that point I was on disability, so I could have found some place to live, but I was so fucked up in the head from going through what I went through in my childhood. I was stuck there until I was 20 years old. So anyways, he just looks at me cool as a cucumber, and he says, "Man, don't push your luck, kid." And that did not calm me down or nothing like that, man. It just all kind of petered out, because I wanted blood. So I got that trait in me too. I don't know if it's from being around him or whatever, but that's the part of me that goes nuts, where, I end up with machetes in the hallway. And, the other time where I told that lady Bootsy wouldn't leave my house. She knocks on my door after midnight asking to borrow money. She wouldn't leave my house. And I told this story before, and I went to slam the door open. I thought she had left the door open, and I went to slam it open to make a point for her to get the fuck out of my house. And the door was closed, and it sent that shiver all the way up on my arm, and I was like, boing, boing. I was like, ah. That really pissed me off, and I opened the door, and I was like, get the fuck out of my house. And I yelled her out of my house, because I couldn't lay hands on her, because she's a woman. And then she's still begging for money in the hallway. She's like, I'm good for it. She had this habit of smacking her hands like this. That was her gesture. And her daughter was the same way. But I was like, you don't understand, man. If you were a man, there'd be blood on this floor right now. And people upstairs, her people, heard me say that. And they're like, man, you don't talk to her that way. And I said, I'll talk to her any goddamn way I want to. And then there was a guy up there named Chucky that was 25 years old, and like tall as me, and cut, and had legs that worked and stuff, but he wasn't coming down because he knew there was going to be blood. And maybe that wasn't his personality, but he knew he was either going to have to hurt me or I was going to hurt him. He knew instinctively what state of mind I was in. But her daughter came down, who ordinarily carries a box cutter. And she's like, I know you wasn't bumping on my mom. And I'm like, I never touched your mom. And she's like, yeah, he never touched me. This was the Bootsy told her. And I could tell that the box cutter wasn't coming out, and there wasn't going to be nothing done, because she wasn't looking at me. And I was been in enough fights. When you're in a fight with somebody, you look at them. And and she was like, I told everybody in the building. I yelled at everybody in the building that night. I was out of my head. I was like, man, I think you think you're the only motherfuckers that can yell in this building. I yelled at top of my lungs so that I knew, and I got a loud voice, so I knew everybody heard me that was in the building, because this is when the hood people were living there. And the one girl was like, the daughter was like, we're going to tell the landlord about this. And I said, why don't you tell the landlord about it? Why don't you call the fucking police? But whatever you do, you get your fucking asses back up those steps. And they both went back upstairs. And then I went back in the house, and I was like, I was having heart trouble at the time, but when I get like that, it just doesn't matter. You know, I just go. You know, I don't know if that's in the family genes or it's just because of the way I had to be so repressed growing up because I had to grow up around somebody that actually killed people and was known to kill people. I mean, I don't know. But I thought I'd end the video with some fun stuff, you know, the more interesting stuff. Unfortunately, there's other stuff that I can't tell you that's even more interesting, but, you know, like I said, I gotta have respect for the living. I don't really think I have to have respect for the dead if they done bad shit. And I think as far as that guy, my uncle pistol whipping that guy in the bar, that guy had it coming, man. He pulled the gun first. You pull a gun on somebody, you get what you get. So, you know, he ain't got nothing. He had plenty else to be ashamed of, but he had to be ashamed of that at all, you know. But I thought I'd end with some interesting stuff, anyways. So this is my usual hour length, which I hadn't intended on doing. But I'm dealing. I'm still dealing. I don't want to be inspirational to people or whatever, but I still try. You have to understand that I've been screwed up since physically in one way or another since I was 14. When I was 14, they told me I had growing pains. I had growing pains, all right, because I said my legs were hurting all the time. And he was like, "Oh, that's growing pains. You come from a family with big people in it. You know what growing pains are." It was like, no, it was growing pains because I was growing a freaking spinal tumor at the time. And, this is just my life. My life is just a joke. The whole thing is a freaking stupid, ridiculous joke. I'm being sent to the chiropractor when I have a spinal tumor growing in me and getting back adjustments, you know. And the whole time, the guy's doing is, what a lot of people think chiropractic, whatever the word is voodoo anyway, but he's like, cracking my back and stuff. There's this tumor growing and they're pressing on my spine the whole time, that if it would have been found and removed at an earlier time, I should have went and had my fortune told too while I was after I went to the chiropractor. Maybe the fortune teller would have done a better job of cluing me into what was really going on than going to a chiropractor when you have a spinal tumor growing inside you. I remember the name of the road that he lived on too. It was Elgin. I can't remember the doctor's name. He had the hots for Bo Derek. I remember that about him, and he was kind of a handsome dude, but he loved Bo Derek movies. They were popular at the time. And, yeah. But yeah, that's just so absurd to go to a chiropractor when you have a spinal tumor growing inside you, pressing on your spinal cord. And if they would have found it sooner, maybe I would be wearing a shirt right now. Maybe I wouldn't be talking to you. Maybe I would be out dancing. You never know. Maybe I would have grandkids. So I don't know why I ended up seeing a chiropractor, what that was about, if that was a hot thing at the time, or my mom believed in holistic medicine. I have no idea, but I just know that I was going to get my back cracked while I had a spinal tumor growing inside me. So, yeah, I'm not really resentful about any of that stuff anymore, because really my condition was entirely preventable. If I would have, it's the same thing with the knee though, they didn't find out what was wrong with me with the knee, except for on a grander scale. So the spinal tumor led to the spinal reconstruction, which led to the CRPS. So if they would have caught the spinal tumor early, if I would have went to a normal doctor instead of a chiropractor who was cracking my back, but the chiropractor, he finally saw something he didn't like about my back, because there was, I guess, a big red inflamed area, and he knew he was in over his head. And he was like, I gotta refer you to this other guy. So he sent me to a so-called regular doctor. And the regular doctor was like, you got something going on here. We don't know what it is. And back in the day, they didn't have any MRI at the time. So the way they found the spinal tumor is they took a big horse needle and injected dye directly into my spinal column. and put me on a tilt table. And then they took x-rays, and the dye didn't go all the way through because there was blockage, and that blockage was a tumor, a benign tumor in my spinal column, pressing directly on my spine and doing damage. By that time, I was having like some pretty horrific symptoms, like not being able to urinate occasionally, mostly, and not being able to walk properly, severe pain, and at that time I was already messed up. And yeah, so my life would have been completely different if they would have caught that early. But I went to a chiropractor. I don't even harbor any grudges against chiropractic, but I don't know, it always seemed kind of stupid to me. I mean, I'd go in there and get my back cracked, and I was like, I mean, what is this actually doing? I'm out of alignment, and you're adjusting me. And then he would tell me to go home after the appointments and put a small pillow under my neck and lay in bed. And it's like, that stuff's just, obviously I'm not going to have a positive opinion of chiropractic. It just seems like voodoo to me. It just seemed like some kind of nonsense. I don't really believe in it. Some people say that some people find it helpful. But my story is long, and my story is complicated, and it's utterly ridiculous. It's like on the Flintstones old cartoon from way back in the day. I think they had a character called Bad Luck Schleprock. Because everything had to have rock or stone in that stupid show. So he was just like, there was like a cloud following him around and stuff. Like, I'm just a bad luck kind of dude. So I just kind of like accept that stuff, the stuff that happened. And it was like a domino effect, from not going to a regular doctor and not getting diagnosed, going to a chiropractor and not getting diagnosed early enough until I got severe symptoms where they knew that something was screwed up. Then, getting the dye injected in my spine and being put on the tilt table, and then they didn't know what it was. They knew that I had an obstruction in my spinal column that was pushing on my actual spinal cord inside the vertebrae. And so that's why when I got operated on, the doctor didn't know what it was. So he's like, you could be a paraplegic from this, because they were thinking, maybe it was a cancerous tumor. He was like, you could be a paraplegic from this, you could be a quadriplegic, or like in all surgeries of this magnitude, it could be death. But they didn't really know what it was. It was a removal surgery / exploratory surgery, because they didn't have any MRI. I don't know when they invented MRI, but in my area anyway, they didn't have MRI. The first MRI that I remember having was in like 1986, before my spinal reconstruction. So, yeah, my story is long and complicated. And, of course, my oratory style is ornate and Baroque, and it is what it is. And I'm going to chew this piece of gum now, and I'm going to leave you in peace. I gave you another hour of perhaps time-wasting material, perhaps interesting material, perhaps boring material. I do not know, because I do not know what interests you. I do not know you. I know that if you're watching my videos, that you are probably somebody who has been through some of the Benzo nightmare stuff. So you will probably at least be happy with the beginning part, with me saying 540 hours, no Xanax, no desire to take any. And I will also publish my Valium chart. And it's kind of interesting. Damn, I just can't stop talking. It's kind of interesting that, like, I was looking at equivalency charts. I was like, how much exactly is the equivalent of 10 milligrams of Valium to Xanax, and it varied. All the different sites I looked up varied, and some of them it even varied. It had like a hyphen, between two numbers. It's like they don't know exactly. I was like, oh, they don't know exactly? I always thought they knew. There was some sort of exact equivalency. So that was something I learned today. because I was curious. I was like, I thought like, because I remember I said 10 times weaker Valium is, but then I did the math, and by math being so horrible, I was like, well, if a quarter of a milligram is equal to 5 milligrams of Valium, that's like 4 to take one, and then 5 times 4, that'd be 20 times weaker, you know. So that's why I looked it up. But anyways, I know that's why most people watch these, is because of they're struggling with the benzo thing, and they find me inspirational because bad shit keeps happening to me. And I'm still able to talk about it and laugh about it, and occasionally have a good story to tell that involves gun violence. So, you know, it's all good. And this video ended up almost being as long as the last video. You'd think I was a manic depressive as much as I talk, but I just like to talk, and I have like little else to do. And I've led a unusual life, I think it's fair to say, with much drama involved in it. I mean, I have so many stories of just a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories in there. A lot of weird shit happened to me. I don't know if I ever told my Cujo story or not before, but I actually had a mad dog. I had to face down a mad dog. that was so big. I'm 6'1", and its head was like looking down at my balls, man. It was a Rottweiler, man. It weighed at least 150 pounds, and it was sicker than fuck. You can just see the muddy eyes thing. It was like a Cujo thing. I might have already told that story before, but yeah, I remember that, man. You don't forget that, because I knew I wasn't dealing with a sane creature. I was dealing with, and I knew I had zero chance. There was no fighting. You know, I weighed 150 pounds at the time. This dog probably weighed more than I did, and there is no fight. There would be no fight. There would be that dog either killing me or putting me in the hospital. Probably killing me, because nobody else was there but me and the dog. But anyways, I might as well just give you the upshot of the story, even though I probably told it before. But I'm like trying to like be a dog whisperer to this mad dog with muddy, sick eyes and just a mangy coat. You know, it wasn't foaming at the mouth. It could have been rabid. I don't know what its deal was, but it was in my yard, and it was like right up to me with its head right next to my balls. And I was like, how you doing there? You know, I was putting on my gentle voice, and it just kept growling louder. So I learned a lesson off of this show from the 70s called Kung Fu, where he was walking through a pit of rattlesnakes. And the secret is to be nothing. It's to pretend like you don't even exist and you're not even there. And so that's what I did, is I put my hands at my side. I said nothing. I made no eye contact. I was just made myself invisible, like I was not there, and the dog got bored and left. But when I was trying to talk nice to the dog, it was pissing it off. I was like, come on, boy, you don't want to be that way. And he was growling louder, all the while that far away from the good stuff. I'm like, oh my God. lots of things like that float around in my head. I just got like a knack for just getting involved in very weird situations and near-death nonsense, and just really ironic things like getting your back cracked by a chiropractor while you have an actual spinal tumor growing inside you. I went to that guy for like probably 2 years while I had a slow-growing benign spinal tumor that was slowly doing neurological damage that would eventually ruin my life and turn me into a overly talkative virgin. Because the spinal tumor led to the reconstruction, which led to the CRPS, which led to lots of horrible things, and then it led to me waiting to find a person that I would fall in love with. Then it led to me of another horrible, ridiculous, impossibly, if somebody wrote it, you wouldn't believe it, thing happening. And it just led me to where I am right now, which is babbling endlessly on the internet for your entertainment. But Benzo people, I guess you could take me as inspirational if you feel that way about me, but I would much rather just be a regular dude and not inspirational. Because I'm sure I already said this, but the guys that are not inspirational, like nobody says, boy, that LeBron's inspirational, because he's a massive, healthy athlete. They say he's really good at what he does. They might say somebody like Larry Bird is inspirational because Larry Bird, man, he was all fucked up. And he played his heart out, because he broke his finger before he ever got in the league. His shooting hand finger, it looked like the letter S. He tore up his finger so bad playing softball. And then he played through back injuries and twin Achilles tendons, and he was an inspirational player. Being inspirational means you're not having fun. So yeah, when that guy said that about me being inspirational, it was like, I'm happy to be inspirational. If you find me amusing, or you're amazed that I can laugh and be cheerful, that, after hearing that my leg is going to be fucked up for another 6 months. But I don't know. I always find I'm just lucky that way, I guess. I can always find things to do, and I usually need that day or two, unless I get hurt by somebody emotionally. If it's something like this that happens where it's like, a doctor is giving me really bad news, it takes me a day or two to process it. And but if somebody hurts me emotionally, it takes much longer. It's like some of that stuff, it doesn't ever get processed, it seems like. But that's why I always say the emotional stuff, way worse than the physical stuff. It's like, yeah, lots of times I've been beaten up before, so I'd much rather be beaten up physically than beaten up emotionally by somebody that you love. That's the worst thing possible. But now that I've just totally killed the whole vibe to whatever I was doing, and made another video that's of epic length, and just because I don't know how to do an ending, or I suppose I could do videos like other people do, where like, this is the subject, we're sticking to this subject, but that's just from my experience as a writer, is I like to let it flow. I like to see what happens spontaneously, see what connections can be made, like I see what I can dredge up out of my hideous, bizarre, ironic, and often laughable past. And that's just the way I like to do things. And so anyways, as usual, if you're suffering from the benzo thing, I wish you all the best, and you got to hang in there with that stuff. It takes time. And yeah, I'm still fighting a good fight. And for the third time, the good news is 540 hours plus. No Xanax, no desire to take any. So, yay for me. Bye-bye.